Chapter 1. I have more than once in my time woken up feeling like death, but nothing prepared me for the early morning in June when I came to consciousness feeling as if I were actually shackled to my own corpse. The whole cave of my chest and thorax seemed to have been hollowed out and then refilled with slow-drying cement. I could faintly hear myself breathe, but could not manage to inflate my lungs. My heart was beating either much too much or much too little. Any movement, however slight, required forethought and planning. It took strenuous effort for me to cross the room of my New York hotel and summon the emergency services. They arrived with great dispatch and behaved with immense courtesy and professionalism. I had time to wonder why they needed so many boots and helmets and so much heavy backup equipment. But now that I view the scene in retrospect, I see it as a very gentle and firm deportation, taking me from the country of the well across the stark frontier that marks off the land of malady. Within a few hours, having had to do quite a lot of emergency work on my heart and my lungs, the physicians at this sad border post had shown me a few other postcards from the interior and told me that my immediate next stop would have to be with an oncologist. Some kind of shadow was throwing itself across the negatives. The previous evening, I'd been launching my latest book at a successful event in New Haven. The night of the terrible morning, I was supposed to go on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and then appear at a sold-out event at the 92nd Street Y on the Upper East Side in conversation with Salman Rushdie. My very short-lived campaign of denial took this form. I would not cancel these appearances or let down my friends, or miss the chance of selling a stack of books. I managed to pull off both gigs without anyone noticing anything amiss, though I did vomit 2 times with an extraordinary combination of accuracy, neatness, violence, and profusion, just before each show. This is what citizens of the sick country do while they're still hopelessly clinging to their old domicile. The new land is quite welcoming in its way. Everybody smiles encouragingly, and there appears to be absolutely no racism. A generally egalitarian spirit prevails, and those who run the place have obviously got where they are on merit and hard work. As against that, the humour is a touch feeble and repetitive. There seems to be almost no talk of sex, and the cuisine is the worst of any destination I have ever visited. The country has a language of its own, a lingua franca that manages to be both dull and difficult, and that contains names like ondansetron for anti-nausea medication, as well as some unsettling gestures that require a bit of getting used to. For example, an official met for the first time may abruptly sink his fingers into your neck. That's how I discovered that my cancer had spread to my lymph nodes, and that one of these deformed beauties, located on my right clavicle or collarbone, was big enough to be seen and felt. It's not at all good when your cancer is palpable from the outside, especially when at this stage they didn't even know where the primary source was. Carcinoma works cunningly from the inside out. Detection and treatment often work more slowly and gropingly from the outside in. Many needles were sunk into my clavicle area. Tissue is the issue, being a hot slogan in the local Tumorville tongue, and I was told the biopsy results might take a week. Working back from the cancer-ridden squamous cells that these first results disclosed, it took rather longer than that to discover the disagreeable truth. The word metastasized was the one in the report that first caught my eye and ear. The alien had colonized a bit of my lung, as well as quite a bit of my lymph node, and its original base of operations was had been located for quite some time, in my esophagus. My father had died, and very swiftly too, of cancer of the esophagus. He was 79, I am 61. In whatever kind of a race life may be, I have very abruptly become a finalist. The notorious stage theory of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, whereby one progresses from denial to rage, through bargaining to depression and the eventual bliss of acceptance, hasn't so far had much application to my case. In one way, I suppose, I've been in denial for some time, knowingly burning the candle at both ends and finding that it often gives a lovely light. But for precisely that reason, I can't see myself smiting my brow with shock or hear myself whining about how it's all so unfair. I've been taunting the Reaper into taking a free scythe in my direction, and have now succumbed to something so predictable and banal that it bores even me. Rage would be beside the point for the same reason. Instead, I'm badly oppressed by the gnawing sense of waste. I had real plans for my next decade, and felt I'd worked hard enough to earn it. Will I really not live to see my children married, to watch the World Trade Center rise again, to read, if not indeed to write, the obituaries of elderly villains like Henry Kissinger and Joseph Ratzinger? But I understand this sort of non-thinking for what it is: sentimentality and self-pity. Of course, my book hit the bestseller list on the day that I received the grimmest of news bulletins, and for that matter, the last flight I took as a healthy-feeling person to a fine big audience at the Chicago Book Fair was the one that made me a million-miler on United Airlines, with a lifetime of free upgrades to look forward to. But irony is my business, and I just can't see any ironies here. Would it be less poignant to get cancer on the day that my memoirs were remaindered as a box-office turkey, or that I was bounced from a coach-class flight and left on the tarmac? To the dumb question, why me? The cosmos barely bothers to return the reply, why not? The bargaining stage, though. Maybe there's a loophole here. The oncology bargain is that in return for at least the chance of a few more useful years, you agree to submit to chemotherapy and then, if you're lucky with that, to radiation or even surgery. So here's the wager. You stick around for a bit, but in return, we're going to need some things from you. These things may include your taste buds, your ability to concentrate, your ability to digest, and the hair on your head. This certainly appears to be a reasonable trade. Unfortunately, it also involves confronting one of the most appealing clichés in our language. You've heard it all right. People don't have cancer. They're reported to be battling cancer. No well-wisher omits the combative image. You can beat this. It's even in obituaries for cancer losers, as if one might reasonably say of someone that they died after a long and brave struggle with mortality. You don't hear it about long-term sufferers from heart disease or kidney failure. Myself, I love the imagery of struggle. I sometimes wish I were suffering in a good cause or risking my life for the good of others, instead of just being a gravely endangered patient. Allow me to inform you, though, that when you sit in a room with a set of other finalists, and kindly people bring a huge transparent bag of poison and plug it into your arm, and you either read or don't read a book while the venom sac gradually empties itself into your system, the image of the ardent soldier or revolutionary is the very last one that will occur to you. You feel swamped with passivity and impotence, dissolving in powerlessness like a sugar lump in water. It's quite something, this chemo poison. It's caused me to lose about 14 pounds, though without making me feel any lighter. It's cleared up a vicious rash on my shins that no doctor could ever name, let alone cure. Some venom to get rid of those furious red dots without a struggle. Let it please be this mean and ruthless with the alien and its spreading dead zone colonies. But as against that, the death-dealing stuff and life-preserving stuff have also made me strangely neuter. I was fairly reconciled to the loss of my hair, which began to come out in the shower in the first 2 weeks of treatment, and which I saved in a plastic bag so that it could help fill a floating dam in the Gulf of Mexico. But I wasn't quite prepared for the way that my razor blade would suddenly go slipping pointlessly down my face, meeting no stubble, or for the way that my newly smooth upper lip would begin to look as if it had undergone electrolysis, causing me to look a bit too much like somebody's maiden auntie. The chest hair that was once the toast of 2 continents hasn't yet wilted, but so much of it was shaved off for various hospital incisions that it's a rather patchy affair. I feel upsettingly denatured. If Penelope Cruz was one of my nurses, I wouldn't even notice. In the war against Thanatos, if we must term it a war, the immediate loss of eros is a huge initial sacrifice. These are my first raw reactions to being stricken. I am quietly resolved to resist bodily as best I can, even if only passively, and to seek the most advanced advice. My heart and blood pressure and many other registers are now strong again. Indeed, it occurs to me that if I didn't have such a stout constitution, I might have led a much healthier life thus far. Against me is the blind, emotionless alien, cheered on by some who have long wished me ill. But on the side of my continued life is a group of brilliant and selfless physicians, plus an astonishing number of prayer groups. Of both of these, I hope to write next time, if, as my father invariably said, I am spared.